Welcome to this pre-recorded event for GCE PE, where you will receive feedback on Unit 2 from the June 2015 series. It is hoped all delegates will benefit from the points made during the event. To help you get the most out of this feedback, you may want to have the following documents available, as you may find them useful to refer to: Unit specification and marks schemes. Following the event, you may wish to read the Principal Moderator's reports, which are available online. You will also refer to work from this series in order to illustrate certain points. Delegates will receive feedback on the performance of candidates from this summer. In particular, we will consider characteristics of the best work and key areas for improvement. Key points from the Principal Moderator's report will be referred to, and there will be suggestions to address common issues and frequently asked questions. Practical performances range from a good standard to outstanding, including a number of elite-level performers in a wide range of activities. General marking was more consistent with the criteria, and in the majority of cases, compulsory evidence was readily available. Moderators frequently commented on well-organized events with thoroughly prepared candidates who were motivated, enthusiastic, and offered high-quality practical sessions. Feedback from moderators also indicated that well-planned and differentiated practical sessions helped to enhance performances. Moderators reported an increase in the numbers being assessed as leaders and officials, with a particularly high standard of leadership at many centres. Many candidates led appropriate warm-ups and practices as part of the practical sessions. The quality of e-portfolio submissions continues to improve each year, although in some cases moderators felt marks were not supported by the evidence provided. In particular, those marked in the top 2 mark bands and offering leadership and officiating roles need to supply more evidence to substantiate marks awarded by centres. In some cases, the compulsory evidence was not provided. Furthermore, centres should improve the range and quality of evidence for those candidates undertaking summer sports. Collating evidence at the start of an academic year from the previous summer can often help candidates provide the necessary compulsory evidence. Moderators will contact centres if compulsory evidence is missing, with centres having 7 days to respond with the necessary information. The example of the rower's work shows the level of evidence needed to support a centre's mark. There is a helpful personal profile which outlines the level of involvement and commitment, together with the compulsory evidence of 8 weeks training and an evaluation of 3 competitive performances, which includes dates and level of competition. As an off-site activity, there are helpful witness statements. The template of this statement is available on the website. Centres should seek to develop the evidence of the quality of the performance along with the compulsory evidence of the 8-week log and 3 evaluations of formal performances. Witness statements are useful evidence sources, as are an indication of standards of performance, for example, school, county, regional, national levels, etc. Centres have continued to enhance the quality of witness statements in recent years. The form requires a reference to the 4 key areas of performance, that is, technical, tactical, physiological, and psychological, which should refer to current levels of performance rather than irrelevant historical information. Information about the standard of competition is helpful to support centre marking, and where possible, the statement should be written by qualified coaches. The statement should be linked to the marking criteria which is outlined in the specification. Increasingly, centres offer video evidence. The quality of video evidence is variable. Accordingly, centres are encouraged to get the candidate to face the camera at the start, introduce him, herself, and offer a brief profile of their involvement in their chosen sport. The video should include suitable practices and match sequences which show key skills under pressure. The candidate must be able to be readily seen, tracked in the various clips, perhaps through a commentary, or being clearly numbered or easily identified. Candidates appear well supported by centres for this task, and many moderators reported on high-quality submissions. Centres appear to be making effective use of the board's checklist, which is available on the website, and many local studies were accurately marked. To access top band marks, candidates must demonstrate they have critically analysed the local provision and not merely described existing opportunities. There was evidence that some candidates failed to include sufficient detail about the opportunities provided by schools, that public, private provision and funding were often lacking in detail and depth. Moderators also reported that some candidates had included detail which was national in context and therefore not relevant to this work. The best candidates presented high-quality and thoroughly researched material, which left the reader fully appraised of the provision across all key areas, including critical analysis, appropriately contextualised case studies, and a bibliography. Candidates who achieved fewer marks often wrote using personal knowledge, when undertaking additional research would have enabled them to record a more factually based account, which in turn provides additional contextual information for the analysis element which is necessary to secure high marks. The local study on swimming was a top-band piece of work. The opening sections outline the costs involved in hiring pools and an indication as to the programming arrangements. There is a reference to the government's expectations about learning to swim and the opportunities available at school, both in terms of learning to swim and to access competitions at galas. This point is developed by reference to the arrangements at one of the local clubs, but would have been further enhanced by reference to the number who have, for example, competed in galas or attended lessons in, say, the last calendar year. Initiatives such as the National Plan and LTAD are outlined, but these are not contextualised by reference to local examples, which is a missed opportunity to illustrate points. Examples of provision through the private and voluntary sectors are well made, and there is a helpful overview of arrangements for officials and coaches, although these might have been illustrated by examples or brief case studies, or, in the case of teachers, coaches, by examples indicating access to the local courses referred to. The study goes on to consider the provision for women and swimmers with disabilities, albeit with no supporting facts, and information on funding refers to links with other agencies and organisations like Swimming Teachers Association and the Amateur Swimming Association. This study gives the reader a very good overview of the provision of swimming in the locality, providing an insight into the provision in schools and clubs, together with the roles played by volunteers and how the public and private sectors support swimming. There are useful sections on the roles of coaches and officials. However, greater depth in some areas would be necessary to score maximum marks. For example, details of the number of male and women participants to illustrate and enhance points made about gender, the number and level of coaches locally, or perhaps examples of clubs and schools which might use the Puffin and Rainbow Swimming Awards referred to. Furthermore, the candidate should be encouraged to use subtitles in order to help navigate the content. Most of the national studies range from being good to very high in quality, although most moderators reported that national studies were not quite of the same standard as the local studies. National studies of the best quality were well structured and thoroughly researched, and demonstrated a clear understanding of the key aspects of the national provision and often included insightful evaluations. Moderators reported that those candidates who produced work of more modest quality had included information that was out of date or simply incorrect, and many failed to identify opportunities at schools and universities and provided vague details on funding and the standing of national squads. Recent initiatives and key new facilities were missed in a number of sports, and, accordingly, all candidates should be encouraged to use the checklist to help structure their work and to target key areas for research purposes. This work has been shown as it illustrates what moderators suggested was a slightly reduced quality for this task when compared to the local studies. The introductory remarks of the content outline the governance of the sport and outlines key areas of responsibility. In doing so, this provides helpful context for the remainder of the work. Funding arrangements at a national level are outlined, and there is a supporting link in the bibliography for additional detail. There is an overview of provision in terms of the number of clubs and a reference to the adapted game for players with disabilities. However, there is not enough detail in terms of a gender breakdown of affiliated players and clubs for the candidate to draw conclusions for analytical purposes. There is a lengthy description of the single system pathway from first-level elite to national team selection and reference to structures such as LTAD and performance centres which are underpinned in the appendix. The conclusion seeks to identify various strengths and weaknesses of the sport, but this lacks analytical substance. Additional marks would have been awarded had the candidate offered more factual content in support of the general descriptions made. For example, a breakdown in terms of affiliated clubs and players as far as men, women and juniors are concerned. An insight into what is offered by schools, and the way in which the schools without artificial surfaces might be hampered, and the national competition structure. Other sections of the work could have been presented in a more succinct way, without the loss of impact to give more space for these aspects of work. Points relating to the work presented on the pathway would have been enhanced by reference to examples or a short case study. With few exceptions, candidates identified 4 appropriate core skills and produced detailed work. The majority of candidates referred to the 3 phases of preparation, execution, and recovery, and included annotated diagrams, links to perfect models, and appropriate contextual information about the tactical application. Some high-quality work included video clips, which enabled candidates to add detail and depth to the quality of analysis, and which, in turn, enabled them to indicate how personal performance might be further enhanced, which is the focus of this work. Where candidates scored less well, it was because they did not cover the biomechanical aspect with enough accuracy and produced work that was overly descriptive and failed to analyse effectively. This was the most accomplished area of the performance analysis task, frequently scoring maximum marks, and was generally marked accurately. Delegates have access to one piece of work for 2.4, which was marked and moderated in the top band. The 4 core skills are appropriate for analysis, and the candidate has provided detailed work of a consistently high standard. Annotated diagrams cover the key phases of the skills, and a table provides information about movement at key joints and muscle action. The candidate seeks to offer analysis through an elite comparison, and the work is laced by references as to how the work undertaken can make a positive impact on personal performance. candidates explored a wide range of tactics and strategies in their chosen activity for the tactical analysis, often in depth and with technical accuracy. Game players, for example, often considered systems of play or principles and tactics of defending and attacking at dead ball situations. A number of candidates offering work on individual sports included interesting psychological considerations, but in some cases this was rather too anecdotal rather than being rooted in appropriate research. At its best, this work was well researched and written with analysis linked to their own experiences and those of elite performers. However, there are still occasions when candidates produce work which has an overemphasis on rules and physical conditioning, with no relevant link to the tactical considerations identified. It was also noted that candidates are still downloading information about team formations and standard tactics from websites, without using this as an opportunity to develop their own knowledge of tactics. Candidates should be encouraged to enhance existing personal knowledge by accessing technical journals, which are available on the best websites or via governing bodies and other appropriate agencies. The candidate offers a wide range of tactics which explore a number of different aspects of performance. The work offered uses a variety of information to describe tactics, and advantages, disadvantages, strengths, weaknesses are considered for each tactic considered, which are in turn applied to impact and enhance personal performance. The work is detailed, uses technical language throughout, and overall demonstrates a very high standard of analysis. The majority, but not all, of the candidates completed the required 3 notations, with most covering both personal and elite performances to aid analysis. A number of candidates simply summarized and described the outcomes and failed to fully analyze the notations. A number did not outline an action plan to support performance enhancement. Moderators reported that although candidates seemed to understand the nature of the task, they sometimes failed to achieve high marks because the work lacked analytical detail and technical language. Candidates sometimes failed to link the 3 notations together to demonstrate how improvements were made, and in other cases, notations did not provide the level, competition, or date. Furthermore, some did not analyze data but simply provided match reports or a series of scores from judges. To score well on this task, candidates need to analyze the data collected and show how in turn this might support improving individual, unit, or team performances. This work was linked to core skills considered in Task 1 and went on to provide a wealth of qualitative and quantitative information including passing, distribution maps, which were illustrated in table and graph form to provide the reader with a significant amount of helpful data. There was a relevant link to comparable data of an elite performer which aided the analysis and identified areas for further improvement. Most candidates offered work linked to physiological aspects of performance. Much of the work was of a high standard, with the best work considering principles and methods of training, together with a review of fitness components, an analysis of test results, and a comparison to elite levels training programs. Those who did this and analysed their training regime were able to indicate how training programs needed to be modified in order to progress onto the next level of performance. Candidates who presented a summary of their own training program without any analysis or an indication of how their preparation might be improved struggled to achieve high marks. A number of candidates attempted this work from a leadership perspective, but in some cases failed to offer any kind of analysis of the coaching sessions outlined. Overall, this work was not of the same quality as other sections and a number of centres had overmarked this task. The work offered for this training analysis covered a wide range of factors related to a successful training programme, starting with a review of components of fitness and then methods and principles of training. Test results were included which provided important context to the work, and individual sessions were reviewed. In addition to the physiological aspects of performance, the candidate outlined drills which were designed to address technical skills, and the candidate also offered a final overall analysis which sought to identify ways in which the existing training regime could be enhanced. This section was well completed by many candidates, with many including helpful data, the views of their coaches, and a review of the work undertaken in the other sections. Some candidates continue to rely exclusively on their own opinions and fail to include a range of test and performance data. Personal or subjective views need to be supported with more objective information. Some candidates provided a detailed analysis of strengths and weaknesses, comparing their own performance to that of an elite performer, and included detail in the 4 areas identified in the specification: physiological, technical, psychological, and tactical. Using personal profiles, performance data and evidence from peer and coach assessments should be encouraged so as to provide additional evidence for the technical, mechanical, physiological, and tactical components. Candidates who scored well linked the outcomes of their analysis to the A2 development plan, which is good practice. Weaker candidates produced work that lacked analytical detail and an appropriate level of technical language. Delegates will be able to recognise that this work has depth and detail, including a thorough personal evaluation of strengths and weaknesses across all 4 aspects of performance, together with consideration of the views of his coach, which provide some triangulation evidence. The candidate considers progress across time by reference to wagon wheels, and there is reference to an action plan, although a little more depth would be helpful here. General advice for candidates regarding the analysis of performance task would include the following. Given the level of detail and depth needed to score well, this is a task which should be started early in the academic year with regular reviews to ensure that work is progressing appropriately. Providing guidelines in order to construct the work helps to provide a framework for the work, and getting candidates to evaluate previous work in order to gauge the level of work required can often help orientate students to the quality of work required to score well. Candidates need to understand the need to enhance existing personal knowledge by using appropriate resources to research tasks, and the need to use technical language rather than layman language. Many moderators suggest that 2.4.1 is often the best task submitted, and so ensuring that students do not get complacent or overburdened with this work is a serious challenge. As far as the performance elements are concerned for Task 2.1, it is worth stressing the following points. Centres should seek to provide testimonials that are related specifically to the marking criteria and that cover each of the 4 areas of performance. A standard form is available on the website. When offering video evidence, candidates should introduce themselves at outset and provide a voiceover commentary to aid visibility and clarity. Video evidence should include candidates demonstrating key skills under pressure in structured practices as well as competition situations. For cluster events, leaders should prepare a session plan in anticipation of being asked to lead a warm-up or functional drill or practice. Centres should complete off-site witness statements to provide detailed supporting evidence for those activities not able to be seen at cluster moderations. Those offering leadership and officiating roles need to supply more evidence, such as reviews, evaluations, and, where appropriate, details of role-specific training. General advice for written tasks would be that candidates should be encouraged to use the checklists which are available on the website for the local and national studies and the analysis of performance to help structure their work and to target key areas for research purposes. Candidates should use technical journals and national governing body manuals to assist with the utilisation of higher-level technical language for all tasks.